Our guest for this session is Itziar Canamasas. She's the head of oncology at Bayer for the region of EMEA. She is a biologist, she holds a PhD in tumour genetics, and has completed multiple executive leadership courses, particularly in high-profile schools like IMD Business School and Harvard Business School. She has a very strong belief in strategy and vision, and is definitely people-focused, with a real emphasis on the customer being the centre of everything. Itziar, welcome to the Mindset Shift, and it's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Tim.
So before we get into the technical aspect of what we're going to talk about, let's find out a bit about you. So where you're from and your background and your schooling and that type of, I suppose, thought process.
All right. So actually, I was born in a small town called Balsareny, but grew up in a little bit bigger town called Caldes de Montbui, about 30 kilometers away from Barcelona. And in there, basically, I did all my schooling up to university, going to local schools. And in there, as life goes, you end up meeting friends, and through a lot of activities that I also did in that town, music and sports and art, trying to ultimately become, hopefully, the all-rounded person that I am today. And then afterwards, at 18, I went to Barcelona to university, still living at my parents' home. We were close enough to Barcelona to still be able to do that every day. And I did so 4 years. And then the last year, I was an Erasmus student and went to Manchester to basically finish my degree in the UK.
So you got a chance to enjoy college life in Manchester, because in Barcelona you had to go home to parents every night.
Living in Oxford Road, right?
And tell me, growing up, outside Barcelona, what was it like? I mean, you talked about a lot of activities. What was your favorite activity in your childhood?
I would think music. So at some point in time, probably 6 days a week, I was at music school, either because of the instrument I was playing or, just doing the classical studies of music. And at some point in time, even considering, should I become a musician or not? Yeah. When you end up developing your I'm not saying your skill sets, and it all becomes so consuming and nice if you really are passionate about music and at the end of the day doing music with other people. Right?
And what was the instrument that you played?
So I played piano and then viola. And the viola was the one that I played then in different orchestras. And at some point in time, I was also part of the Catalan Youth Orchestra, traveling around Europe too. Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah, super cool.
Because in your bio, you never mentioned that. I that's really fascinating. The other stuff about being a biologist and tumour genetics, that's all okay. But being, in a Catalan orchestra is really cool.
Yes, but that is, in a sense, so many years ago that unfortunately, I would say music, it's always with me. And right now I'm more in singing and playing piano, which is a very nice instrument still that sounds well. Even though you haven't played it for a long time. But somehow I have the feeling that in the near term, I'm going to come back to viola and playing again in orchestras again. I just sense it, that it will come back.
Oh, that's nice, because I think one of the things that when we have a passion for anything, and in this case, your passion is for music, it's nice to have the skill, that you can park it for a period of time and then just pick it up again. And it's, something at your level that has been at an orchestra level means that you can do that. You can pick it up and it's like riding a bike. People would say that it comes back very naturally, does it?
Hopefully. Depends on the instrument. That's what I understood. But at least if not, I always can revert to singing, which is something I've always loved to do. And that's I would say what I carried on for a long time, because when I was in Barcelona, I was more in general, let's say maybe 40 people choir. And then when I moved to Germany to do my PhD, I was in a 12 women choir that went to a lot of, competitions and things. And that was lots of fun too. And then when I moved to the States, I One year I was in a gospel choir because I wanted to learn to do the singing and moving
Right.
around. That was lots of fun. And then when I was in Connecticut, I sang more in a choir, more symphonic choir, right? Doing other kinds of music and pieces. So there's always music everywhere you go if you find the time. And now I do it along with my son, which is fine too. It's a choir of two.
And tell me, in all the different genres of music that you've talked about, symphonic, gospel, etc., which one was the one you kind of said, yeah, that's me, in the perfect world, that's me?
I don't think I would think it that way. For me, I connect to music independent on the environment that I am, and I enjoy it in different ways. I don't have one specific that I like more or not. I would say I've enjoyed them all as they've come along, and there's something that you can learn from them and grow ultimately. Yeah.
It's interesting for me, though, chatting to you, Itziar, because when you talked about the gospel music, you got really animated. You talked about the other ones. So it was just interesting. And I would have thought to myself, the gospel music got her, and she got the gospel music.
Yes, and that is true, but I also had lots of fun and enjoyed it likewise. It's just different the way you behave when, let's say, you're singing a Magnificat or so with a choir of lots of people versus, let's say, the more fun part. I enjoy it all, really, really, Tim. I really enjoy it.
And now you're passing it on with your son, which is actually the best enjoyment, really, I assume.
That is true. That is true.
So music obviously took you, as you say, you were in Germany, you traveled around, but, after your PhD, what was your entry into the professional world?
So that's a very interesting question because during my PhD, I realized that I was more mentally stimulated towards science and less necessarily about being in the lab preparing the pipetting or the gels or the activities per se. And with two other friends, we did a project with the German job department about what can a biologist do apart from being a biologist. So we started going to job fairs. And here's how actually I interviewed with Bayer for an International Management Trainee, as I interviewed with other companies too. And then Bayer made me an offer 1 year before finishing the PhD to join their trainee program. So I just basically took it. And the reason I took it is because I felt I could do an MBA by doing instead of just theoretically by going to a business school and learning. And basically, I did this 3-year program with Bayer. It was in the US, where I was a sales representative, and I went into marketing, and I went into finance, and then I was the assistant of the CEO. And before that, there were a couple of months in Leverkusen, which is our headquarters, to ultimately learn about business management. And that gave me quite a different perspective, but learning by doing. And that was, I would say, a super start for me as someone coming off university fresh and learning and applying a lot of learnings over those 3 years.
But it's very different, I mean, than your PhD, because your PhD is biology, and now you're in management and, marketing and sales and finance and all those crazy things that go on in management. That's really interesting for me, in that obviously the PhD was relevant in the field, obviously with Bayer, but it's a complete switch, Itziar.
It was a complete switch, and now I have a better answer to it once I've matured and I understand my purpose, which I didn't know at that point in time, but then it makes sense. The way I explained it at that time is I wanted to go into a job where I would be interacting with people and where it would be mentally stimulating. And that job actually ticked both, right? It was mentally stimulating in the science world, which ultimately is what I had a passion for and what I had discovered I liked most out of my PhD. And in addition, obviously, you were meeting lots of people and it gave you so many different inputs, and it allowed me to travel, which was also one of the things that I always had wanted, that I haven't mentioned growing up, but I always wanted to go outside and learn another language and experience the life of living overseas, right? And
so you mentioned you went to the US. That was your introduction to the Bayer world.
Exactly.
So somebody from just outside Barcelona who's had a stint in the UK and then now has had a PhD journey in Germany
find yourself in the big USA. What was that like for you?
And not only the big USA, they sent me to do it to Columbus, Ohio, which they could have chosen some place where there would be a lot of Spanish-speaking people, but it certainly was a change. Like
I've been in Columbus, Ohio, so I understand. I know Columbus, Ohio, so I've been there.
So lovely people, like amazing, and I really still have friends there. But ultimately, it's a different way of living life, right? I still remember one of the first interactions of, so what do I do in Ohio? Oh, you can go shopping, or you can go and play in the casinos. And it's like, well, that's not really neither my cup of tea, right? But the people were, if you're able to connect, they were wonderful. And as I said, I still have some friends there for the year that I spent there in Ohio. And then headquarters from Bayer at the time was in Connecticut. So the other 2 years were in Connecticut in New Haven. West Haven. So it's where Yale University is also, and relatively close to New York. Right?
I played at Yale University at one stage in my life, and I've always found it a fascinating university. I just thought to myself, it's just a wow. I've also been fortunate. I went to the Harvard Business School as well, so we have some bit of a connection. But what I found was that Yale was just wow. The history of it and the achievement of it, I just found was, but it's very different in Columbus, Ohio. I mean, even though still it's different in New York, but it's Yale, that's infrastructure around Yale is so different than Columbus, Ohio. It is really like from the rural to the sort of the city, and then you go from there to the bigger cities, New York. So that's fascinating, even in its own journey within the States.
Yeah, it really was. And then the campus that Bayer had at that time in Connecticut was really a super nice campus. And at the end of the day, I really enjoyed all of our time in the States. We've been in total 10 years, right? 5 years the first time, and then 5 years at a later point in time within Bayer too. And I just find it so easy to connect with the American people, and they are always so polite and so nice to help you. And it's very easy then obviously to integrate and to enjoy the nature that a huge country has. Right?
I fully agree with you. I find the American people very generous, very hospitable, very clear about what their objectives in their life are. But I've always found them very engaging and very confident. What I liked about the Americans was the clarity in their confidence, and that's always something I've always tried to learn from, and trying to improve myself and my own country, that they have a great confidence and clarity about what they are, One thing is interesting for me, though, you were in sales, you said, in those first 5 years. So, I'm always fascinated by, as I call it, technical people. And you're obviously a technical biologist at that point in sales. So tell me about that. That was really interesting for me.
And that, I have to say, was also quite interesting, because later on I learned that the sales representatives in other countries are more scientific. Right. So, for example, in Germany, I believe you have to pass even an exam, that it's a science exam, before you end up going and being able to sell pharmaceutical products. Whereas in the US, I think I was one of two people with scientific background in that sales training group. And we're about 35 people that were put together for 3 weeks to really learn about all the products that we were going to sell. And the majority of them were coming, I don't know, from selling copy machines and other things that really had necessarily nothing to do with sales, right? And that also, I think, it depended on the kind of product and also the kind of doctors that you were going to see as a sales representative, right? In that sense, as you say, it was, let's say, a complete shock and change, but it's part of the reason why as a trainee program, it's important they put you through sales so that you understand what it means to really get to speak with the doctor, that you have to connect with everyone in that, in the office that you're going to visit, that you have to win them over, that you need to add value, that ultimately they need to see something in you that they enable you to ultimately see the doctor, which is the person that hopefully you can educate. And when a patient comes across, they remember what you've educated them on, and they make the choice of your product, right? So certainly it was a big change, but I would say one of the most important learning experiences that I could have to be able then to ultimately carry over to each and every position I've had afterwards, right? You learn a lot of resilience.
Well, it is very interesting, Itziar, because like in the value chain, most people at your level would not have been at the coal face. But it is great that you've had the experience of getting to the doctor's secretary to get into the doctor and building that relationship with the secretary at the first instance to get a chance to talk to the doctor. Because obviously, they're the door into the doctor, obviously. And then, the impact and the benefit that has to the patients right through that process. So that must have been something that, as you've gone on in your career, has always been something to build on. Has it?
To build on, you mean the experience in sales, or yeah, certainly. Because when I moved into marketing afterwards, I was able to carry the voice of sales, because you have a danger if you're only in an office and you don't really understand how difficult this really is to see those customers, then it may be very easy to underestimate what it really would mean, or it would not be as easy the way that you're developing the selling messages or the educational messages you may bring forward. So it certainly has served me. And then the overarching art of selling, it's something that you and everyone has to do each and every day when you're trying to bring your team over to any change that may be required at a given point in time. So yes, it's certainly a really, really good experience.
Within the Bayer family, it strikes me, though, because they put you in and gave you the opportunity in all those different, I suppose, sectors at that point in time in your first journey in the US, that they had great belief in your potential and in your ability to grow within the company. Is that a fair assessment for me?
In theory, that's what they are set up to do, right? They are looking to identify talents that they believe would end up becoming senior executives within the company, right? So yes. That's the goal of the program.
And you're obviously living testimony of the success of that program, because many organizations talk about talent and developing talent and empowering talent. But you're, in this brief chat today, clear evidence of the fact that it really works. If you invest in the people and if you stay committed to a program, and I think as executives, and when I work with clients in executive coaching, I always talk about you must stay the program. And there'll be hurdles, there'll be things get in the way. But Bayer have obviously demonstrated through your journey, that they're prepared to stay with the program and get the fruits of the benefit as it progresses.
Yes, they have, and I'm not the only example. There's multiple people that were from my generation, or let's say every year there were 12 starting across all Bayer. And there's some that are still spread out now at higher management at this point in time. And even our CEO right now for pharma had started as part of the trainee program. When you think about that, it was a little bit of a different trainee program at the time, but yes, it had started from the trainee program.
So you've just moved, I understand, back to Basel in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so you're head of the EMEA region for Bayer now. So tell me about, I suppose, looking at the end of last year, and starting this year, what was your, I suppose, vision for the year as you looked into the year? What was your sort of strategic outputs that you expected to get from yourself and from your team? And then we'll talk about the challenges of the year itself.
Yeah, so as you said, obviously I'm not in this role only for about 2 months. So at the end of last year, I was in Ireland. I was basically leading the Irish organization for Bayer.
Okay.
And at that point in time, what I foresaw for 2020 was the continuation of a journey for growth. And for us as a leadership team, it wasn't only business growth, but it was also people growth. Because we believed that in order to succeed, having an organization with employees that are willing to be the best they can be each and every day they come to work is the key to success. So we had been working along the lines, which interventions and ultimately which frameworks do we implement in the organization in order to achieve that, if that's our goal. And about 1 year ago, we started as a leadership team to transform the way we work in utilizing a framework that we call the empowered ways of working. It had a huge impact on us. And so the beginning of the year was the beginning of the change management of getting the organization on board to adopt this new way of working. And then COVID hit, right?
Okay.
Which one would say, okay, what happened to it? I guess some of the questions may go along those lines. But
before that, it's here.
Yeah.
Before that, before that, we'll get to COVID. So you just mentioned about being the best you can be. And for me, that's what it is all about. It's about us individually being the best we can be, us as a team being the best we can be, and us as an organization being the best we can be.
Yeah.
So, but that's not easily achieved. Many people talk the talk. I've always believed as a leader, and now as an executive coach, I want people to walk the talk, because that's the real difference. So talk to me about the process and the program you put to bring that to fruition.
Mm-hmm. So there were multiple interventions we did along the way to achieve that. And obviously it's all a journey. It's never ending, right? Because we all as humans evolve, and shift. And one of the first things, however, we focused on was along purpose. And why purpose? Because if you know what your purpose is, then it will energize you. It will allow you to focus. It will allow you to really be the best you can be along the lines of what you're trying to achieve. And we did that by first experimenting it on myself, finding my own purpose, and understanding how by applying this purpose, it was energizing me during the day and allowing me to rule my impact and be most effective during that day. Then once that was understood, leading by example, as you were saying it, we brought Gary Sheehan from as an external speaker, and he was speaking about the power of intention and purpose. And we had then all the teams and the organization working towards defining their own purpose. It doesn't matter if perfect or imperfect, but just understanding that feeling and gaining that focus. And that was one set of interventions. The second one was along developing these hyper-learning behaviors or self-learning behaviors that are so important for organizations and for people to succeed and be the best they can be. So we had an entire program there also to enable employees to develop those activities and help them along the journey of development. And the third major intervention we did was all along identifying this framework, which I mentioned before, the empowered ways of working, that allowed teams to focus around a purpose and understanding where you wanted to focus your energy for those next 3 months and which activities you want to do on those next 3 months and which roles do you require to make that happen. And that gave also the shape all of a sudden to potentially shift the organization to work towards a purpose, which at the same time allows each and every one of us to be the best we can be, because we know what role we play towards achieving that. Yeah.
And that's very interesting for me, because I talk a lot to organizations about, how to get the best out of a team, because it's very different, obviously, than an individual. But I talk clearly about that the individual in the first instance must perform their best. Yeah. And then if we all in the team perform our best, then the team ultimately performs its best. Because sometimes, when you have a team environment, we forget that it's a team made up of individuals. Yes. And if you have a purpose for each individual and you empower each individual, then ultimately the team will be a stronger team because of that. And, the purpose will be achieved more consistently. And I think I'm just fascinated by that particular program, Itziar, because it really sings to what I believe in, that we should get people to be the best they can be every single day. And what I say to my clients and to companies I talk to is that, but don't compete against yesterday. Yesterday was yesterday. Let's just be the best we can be today and our purpose for today. And you made a point that whether it is one task or 5 tasks, it doesn't matter. It's just be the best you can be at that particular task, So well done in that. I'm really impressed with that, and I must say.
Yeah, but it's a never-ending story.
and then what happened is, so this story had just really kicked off, and then COVID hit. So talk to me about the impact of COVID at that point in time on your journey as an organization, just back in February, March timeframe.
Yeah. So probably like everyone, you go in complete shock mode. Yeah. You on daily COVID calls. And as a leadership team, our main goal was really to make sure that everyone was okay and that everyone would be enabled to continue then to operate, even working from home. Yeah? So just trying to find solutions about, okay, Does everyone have the computers? Does everyone have high-speed internet? Does everyone start having laptop razors? That was our first step, right? And later on, when this thing was going longer, does everyone have a monitor that it's possible? Do you need exceptions, depending if someone maybe has back pain or other things that need to find the flexibility, right? And then from the beginning also, because we were talking so often, making sure that we were listening and understanding if we needed to do things differently. Because I don't know if you guys felt the same. You're on the computer all the time and all the time in meetings, and you don't have time to think. And to really do your best work, you need time to think and to do your own work. And we needed to find solutions to it. So we started then introducing 2 afternoons a week meeting-free zone from meetings that were coming from Ireland, right? And other little things that ultimately would help us, to survive and then thrive the situation that was ahead of us. Right?
What's interesting again for me is that, you talk about listening. When I was working with organizations to support them, I talked about engagement with your staff, not just communicating, because communicating can sometimes be a one-way street. Mm-hmm. We can send emails or we can send video messages, but really listening, because, what I really am impressed with the fact that you fix solution or provided solutions for people, even though to back problems. You made sure to give them screens as this went on, rather than sitting in a smaller laptop. Visualization for them. So, because again, COVID is going to go on for a period until we get a vaccine and antidose and stuff. But and that looks like that's going to happen over the next sort of 6 to 9 months. If we take all the research that is appearing in the media at the moment. But engaging with people is really very important. Have you continued that, or have you dropped off that?
No, so things ended up normalizing, right? So at the beginning, you were in the daily calls. Until then, tensions were not coming, so the calls were very short, and then you started going to 2 times a week, and then you start going to once a week, and then you ended up normalizing it, because at the end of the day, it became the integral part of day-to-day, and we needed to find a different way of doing business. And again, always listening through the organization and the way that we were working. And then finding, as you said, other ways to make sure that we kept engaged, right? So very early on, we had every day there was a coffee chat so that everyone could dial in, speak about the world and whatever they wanted to talk. One day a week, you had some people cooking and giving cooking classes. Another day a week, someone else was doing exercises. So, and that was not us leading that, as we had been very lucky in developing an organization that was self-steered. And what ultimately the culture was the culture of all, and everyone felt empowered to make proposals and try them out. And if it doesn't work, then you stop it and you try something else, right? Yeah.
And that takes actually great courage to have that philosophy that if it doesn't work, we try something else. The other thing you talked about earlier was about getting space. I speak a lot with executives, and I say the most important thing you can get every day is space.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to get caught up in meetings, and we sometimes go to meetings because it's perceived we should be at the meeting, or the view is, we have some input to the meeting. But I think, I believe that most times executives and other people, but particularly executives, need space. I mean, you made a point meeting free for 2 days. Do you find that space is something that is easily available to you, or do you have to really work hard to get yourself some space?
So in Ireland, because I had already a set pace, and what I mean, I had a wonderful team and I have been there already 2.5 years, then I already had carved out my space. And at the beginning, it was tough with COVID, but then once things normalized, it was easier again. Now I find in this new role, it's quite tough, because obviously at the beginning, you have to understand where you are before you can start steering things, right? But still, I think it's really important, and it's not only us saying it, it's all major leaders, right? From Jeff Weiner to others in other organizations who speak about the importance of reflection. And I do have a reflection time each and every day where I try to think about what has happened and what are the key actions that I take out of it. And then also I have a journal that I do each and every day, very quick routine. In the morning when I wake up, I say, what are the 3 things that I'm grateful for? What are the things that I want to do in the day? How do I want to best live my purpose? And then at the end of the day, I reflect what are the 3 things that really work well, and the 3 things where maybe I could do better, and then ultimately 3 things that I'm grateful for, right? And I don't always write it all down. Sometimes it ends up being more in the head, and I know when I write it down, it's more effective. But life happens. But at least I'm trying to do that because it gives me energy, and if it gives me energy, then it allows me to settle and to be better at what I am. Right?
That's fascinating for me, Itziar, because again, part of my philosophy is for organizations and leaders to run it by saying to people, ask them what went well yesterday, what didn't go well yesterday, and what are your plans for today. And what you've just described there is that in action, because what I find is that, when we get up in the morning, we want to have a great day. We just want to have a great day every day. And, life gets in the way, just life gets in the way. Some days it gets in the way in a good way, other days it gets in the way with a challenging way for many of us. But to have the clarity to say, what are the 3 things I want to do? What are the things that I want to be energized about? What's my purpose for the day? And then to have the reflection to say, it was a good day, or it could have been a better day, or it was a good day with some challenges. I'm really impressed by that because, not because I believe in it and I coach people in this, but I believe we don't do enough of this. We don't do enough of looking at what we did well. We're very good, I believe, in organizations at what didn't go well. And we dive straight into what didn't go well. And do you find that, you have the capacity to focus as much on what went well as what didn't go well?
Because I've been working on myself on it, and because of the framework, I think it's easier to also think about what went well as well. But without having that framework, you're right, that automatically your mind goes more towards, oh, I should have done that differently, or why didn't I say that? That's, I think, human nature. You need to reverse it, or consciously wanting to reverse it. And the framework I was explaining about just makes you do it. And if you do it, then automatically comes and it becomes an exercise.
Yeah, and that's actually interesting because it is a pivot. I mean, if you take it is a pivot from looking at things from just one lens, which is what didn't go well, to both lenses. See, both lenses are equally as important in my view, because, we learn a lot from what did go well, but we just sometimes, if we don't have the framework you described, we don't sometimes reflect on what went well. We just tend to look at what didn't go well. But in your case, during the COVID, did you feel how did you handle the strain? You're the leader of a team that has just brought out a new framework. It's very exciting, the framework that you've described. And now COVID has hit, and you did a lot of stuff with your staff. You engaged, you had cooking days, exercise days, coffee days, etc. What was the strain like for you, though, as a leader? Or was there a strain on you?
Oh, yeah, like probably for everyone. I mean, first of all, there was the personal strain, right? We had to become a school. How do you make that happen? You couldn't go out the way that you typically did. You were not meeting people the way you typically did, right? You were living in fear, which is something that I wasn't particularly used to, or my family wasn't particularly used to. So there were quite a lot of behaviors already in the personal life were affecting that. And in addition, you had the work life, where, as you said, you're the leader. You want to be there for everyone with the leadership team, making it happen. And finding that balance was at the beginning taxing for the body. And I remember those first weeks finishing every day completely exhausted, which is normal, right?
Yes.
Until things start normalizing a little bit, and you start introducing the routines of, cooking well and eating well and exercising well and finding time for yourself and regaining a little bit more of what you had before. And if I think from a personal perspective, COVID has made us stronger as a family. And I know it may be not the case for everyone. In our case, we really enjoyed being with each other and playing a lot with each other and cooking together and exercising together. Now in Switzerland, things are more open. So it's more back to normal here. Okay. But the time in Ireland, I look at it as tough as it was, but it was really special as well.
So looking at the fact now that you've now your new role, you're in Switzerland, life is a bit more normal that we would be experiencing in the Western world pre-COVID, but it will get back to more normal again, please God, in the future, in the post-COVID. How are you looking forward to the future for you and your organization?
I mean, my organization has a really strong vision, which is bringing health for all and hunger for none. So we're really lucky, right? In a sense, in particular, the health for all, which is my area of the business with pharmaceuticals. The fact that you're working on products or services that are going to hopefully bring better health to people, that in itself, it's a huge purpose. And what I would say, the big change I'm seeing for us as an organization as a whole is that all this digital transformation is catching up with us, right? We were, I would say, more laggards versus other kinds of businesses. Now we just can't be. We cannot reach our customers. Our customers cannot be accessed or seen, or maybe some, but not really in the way that it used to be. And now they are now accessing information in a different way too. So we need to transform the way that we structure ourselves, the way that we do business, the way that we approach our customers. How do we continue to be valuable for our customers and delivering those solutions that they're going to require? So it's certainly a big shift that I'm seeing right now in my organization and all other organizations in pharmaceuticals and beyond. Right?
Has your mindset shifted? The name of this series is The Mindset Shift. Do you see that your mindset has shifted in the last period of time?
Yes. And it's not now that it's shifting. It's been shifting already for years. And I've been reflecting why. Is COVID, it's an accelerator of a change that already existed. If you just think about the computational power, artificial intelligence, machine learning, gadgets that basically lead all of our lives, our mindset and the way we cope and deal with life each and every day is shifting, and it requires us to evolve and adapt. And again, coming back to what we said before, be the best we can be each and every day. And obviously having a growth mindset, it's going to be crucial for us to succeed and live happier lives.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Itziar, to chat to you today on the Mindset Shift series. I think you've been a fascinating guest. I think that your experience, your success, your journey has just been exceptional. It has had great fun along the way. I love the fact that you're focused on being the best you can be. And I can just reassure you that in this interview, you definitely were the best you could be. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, Tim. It really was a pleasure. It was fun.
Thank you for watching The Mindset Shift. For more episodes, check out www.talenthub.ie/The Mindset Shift.